Alright, so I'm just going to do a recap on gold. The markets just closed here, and we saw just another surge from gold taking us all the way up right in this resistance zone, which I was talking about in my previous gold video, which again is anywhere from, I'd say, about 1400 to 1425. We're going to see some resistance in there to push through. Early this morning, before the markets were open, we pushed all the way up and hit this 1415 level. And then we pulled back down and came back down to the $1,400 price point and kind of just consolidated right in there throughout the trading day today, closing at the higher end. You can see right now we're at about 1402. But a good move here in gold. Right as we got into this 1380 to 1390 level, I was talking about the potential that we could see a pullback down to 1360 and then a rally back up. And my other scenario was that we would just push right on through with all of the momentum that we had gathered over the course of roughly the past couple of weeks here, and that we would just push right through that $1,400 level, and that is in fact what we did. As I said, we pushed up to this 1450 and then came back down, kind of consolidated, bounced around that 1390 level, and then rallied back up, and here we sit at 1402 as the market has come to a close here for the week. But where do we see this going next week? That is always the question. Where are we going in the future so that hopefully we can make some money? So I'm going to go ahead and take us over to the dollar index and just point something out that I have been seeing, and I mentioned this in my previous video, but if you didn't happen to watch that, I'll just go over it real quick. So I spoke on this channel that we saw forming for roughly almost a year now. It was about early August at the start of this here channel. And I focused in the last video on us coming down here and hitting the bottom edge of this channel, the bottom trend line. And, really what it was that if we bounced off of the bottom end of this channel and continued back upward, that we would most likely see gold pull down to that 1360 level. But if we failed, gold would continue to move higher. And that is what we saw, the latter of those two. We saw the dollar index break below this almost year-long channel and move down rather rapidly. But with that being said, we could see it pull back up and maybe back test this trend line, and that would be a move that would make gold go downward. So we have to pay attention in this coming week, right as we're closing out the month, to see what the dollar index does. If we rise back up, gold prices could fall, and we might see a consolidation before the next rise. So we could see something along these lines. This is what I would, predict what would happen if we were to see this dollar index come back up and gold prices fall and consolidate. Something along these lines. But we could have something, where we just continue this free fall and maybe, come down here right around where we have some support from from January roughly. But again, I mean, that's another big drop. And while we're not oversold here on the daily chart, we are on the 4-hour chart, I believe. Yeah, so we are pretty oversold here on the 4-hour, but that doesn't mean that we will continue or that we'll see buyers step in and push this back up. Just because we're oversold here does not mean that we will move back up and that buyers will come in. It is a good indication that maybe some buyers will step in, but it is not a matter of fact that we will see buyers step in and push this back up, because if we look at a 3-year weekly chart, we're sitting right in the middle here. I'll zoom this in. We're really sitting right in the middle. We're not close to being oversold. But if we do get to that level, that might be a stronger sign that buyers are willing to step in and move the dollar back up. And I say that because we have two indications right here. While it was over the course of a few months and the price did continue to decline, in that period, eventually buyers stepped in and we saw this move back up. And again, we saw that here. Right in 2018, right at the beginning of the year, the dollar fell and we became oversold. You can see down here on the RSI, oversold, and buyers eventually stepped in. We kind of fiddled around for a few months, and then we eventually saw the price of gold come back up. So, with looking at a weekly chart, we are by no means oversold at the moment. If you go into the tighter time frames, we are. And that is mainly because we have just seen quite a sharp move down here, especially this week. This is a bearish engulfing candle that we're looking at, so not a very positive sign for the dollar, but again, that makes the price of gold go up. So we'll go ahead and pull gold up so we can get a look at it, and I'll go over some support and resistance levels here on gold. So just the short-term support that we would want to be looking at. With just such a rapid rise, it's kind of hard to find any strong, significant support zone if we start to see this fall, other than down here. So that is the 1350 level that I've been talking about. But also the 1360 roughly, so like right around in here, right where we saw the tops before the big pop that we had. So 1360 we'd want to see hold, and 1350 we would want to see hold. So, and that's a really big move for gold to see it go down that far. But if we get down to that level, we'll have to reevaluate. But that is always a possibility. You have to really understand everything that you are looking at. If this were to come down, where would it go? If it goes up, where would it go? You really need to play out your trade. But if we're looking real close, the shorter time frame supports usually do not hold as well as the more long-term supports. But, if we were to look at those, let's look right in here around, I'd say roughly between 1395 to 1397, 1398 would be a nice little support. So we'll go ahead and put in a line right here. You can see we broke through it this morning and then popped and rose back above it. And you can see, a couple times we bounced off of it throughout today. And then the 1390 level would also be a more short-term support right in there. And then right down here, this would be, so 1380. If we don't hold 1380, then you might see 1360 and 1350. But again, with the way that gold is moving, I don't see a very rapid sell-off unless there is some sort of news that comes out bringing the price of gold down. So, that's just what I would be having to pay attention to so that I'm making the best trade that I can. But let's go ahead and look at some resistances. I'm going to go ahead and move it out to the 20-year because that is really where we're seeing the resistances. And this really gives you a good picture of what it is that we're looking at here. So you can see over the past couple of weeks we've really been moving. And I talked about that once we got through the 1350, 1360 level. There really wasn't a whole lot of resistance before we got to 1400. And you can see we have done just that. So if we continue rising, if the dollar continues to fall and we continue rising here in gold, the big thing is that we make it through the 1400 to say 1425 level. So I threw in this resistance line here at 14.15 last night, just as like an average little resistance line. So we want to see it pop through that and continue to hold above it as we go and test it into next week, most likely. But if we make it through that level, where is it that we are going to look and see the price of gold have some more resistance? So I would say as we climb into the $1,500 level, so now we're really talking. If we're getting up to $1,500, now we're really moving. But right in here around say 1475, you can see we had a few tops back here. So if we get into this 1475 to say $1,500 mark, you know, we might be seeing some people taking profits, and at that point, that would be a rather extended rally. It's not impossible, but that would be a rather extended rally if we saw gold get all the way up to this 1475 level within next week. That would just be a very strong move to see it go all the way up there. But it is possible. So if we were to see it break through, say, the 1475 level, you know, what other resistance would we have? And I would say, you know, if we were to really blow through that, look at all of these wicks. There's a top back here, some bottoms right here. So I would say right in this zone, I think I still have there we go. So if we were to come right in here around, say, 1570-ish, you know, that would be another resistance that we would need to look at. But again, these are very spaced out resistance levels, more long-term resistance levels. So in the day-to-day trading, you know, we're not necessarily going to be looking at these. On the day-to-day, you're going to be looking at much tighter supports and resistances, but these are going to be much more long-term. So if we were to break through this 1425, so 1415 to 1425, where would we look for more long-term resistance? Right up here around 1475, and then the next being around 1575. But again, you know, we're going to trade back and forth through those levels if that is the way that gold is moving. And just one more support here, or just a thing to pay attention to, is let's say we come and we back test this here downward trend line, which is a possibility. If we were to come down and back test it over the course of the next couple weeks, that is also possible, and we might see a pop from there, or we could see a continued decline through there. So just one more thing to pay attention to, and I want to bring your attention to here on the gold future. So let's go ahead and move on over to GLD. So this is what I've been trading. So GLD again had another good day. Where you can see we're up a little over 0.5%, about 80 cents here on GLD. But you know, still continue to move just along with the price of gold. And at the time that I made the last video, I believe we had just popped through 128, excuse me, we had popped through 128, and we had come and we had tested the 131 level, or we were near the 131 level, and I had marked in that that would be a resistance level for GLD to break through, and we did break through it, and we've been holding through it, which is good. That is a good sign, and you can see we're kind of consolidating right in here around 132. So again, if gold continues to rise, our next resistance is going to be right in here around 133, and then we'll see 135, I believe, is the level. But as far as supports go, we want to see it hold above 131. If it does come back down, try and bounce off of that. We actually saw it today. I'll move into the hourly chart here. You can see we had a few wicks that were down here near the 131 level that you know, they were all bought up, and it pushed us all the way up to 132. So 131 is definitely a support level here on GLD. If we were to continue to fall, there might be a little bit of support in here around, say, 130.50. But other than that, it is a gap up, so you have to be careful. If this were to start moving south, we could see the 128 level come up on us relatively quick. So just be mindful of that when you're trading here. That if we were to start seeing a decline here in the price of gold and in the price of GLD, we could rapidly go down to this 128 level. That is not my preferred scenario, but it is plausible. So, hopefully that helps you. We closed out the week pretty good, not on a support, not right at a resistance, just right there in the middle, and we'll see what it is that we, what the price of gold is going to do as we move into the next week. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you benefited some from this and that it helped you out and that you will be able to make good trades moving forward. So thanks again for watching.